Welcome to the Professionalist Real Estate Investing Podcast with your host, Tony Jacobs. This podcast is not just about making money. It's about creating a legacy that stands the test of time. From analyzing market trends to mastering negotiation skills, we will leave no stone unturned as we guide you through different stages of real estate investing. We will bring on industry leaders and share stories from the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So now, it's time to level up your real estate game. And there's no better way to do it than right here with us at the Professionalist Real Estate Investing Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to the Professionalist Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm with Mike Liddicoat. I pronounced that right. How you doing today, Mike?
Yep. I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me on, Tony.
No problem. I just wanted to get you in before I go on my little vacation. But I just want to talk to you about how did you get into real estate? What's your little background as to from where you started to basically where you're at now?
Sure. So how I got started, I grew up the son of an architect. So a lot of dinner table discussion around, buildings and permits and cities and counties and those sort of stuff. So when I got into my 20s, I didn't realize that it wasn't normal for people to not, know how to read a blueprint. Was, kind of my first introduction to job sites and that sort of stuff. But where I really got into real estate was my parents were doing development work, and they found what eventually became, I think it's like 140 or 160 acres for a sports complex development. And they met the people and got the deals in place and did all the stuff. And at the last minute, they brought in a realtor to go and sign all the paperwork and get everything done. And then they saw the size of that commission check that guy did. And they're like, wait a minute, we did all the work. We did all the hustle. And he's going to get how much? And so my mom called me up and said, hey, this is what just happened. We think you should go get your real estate license so that if we ever have that happen again, you can, we can keep that in the family. And I was like, fantastic, which, by the way, never happened again. Like, that didn't come to fruition.
Just one and done.
Like that deal. Yeah, one deal, one time. I mean, I don't know how many other times they were expecting to do a 160-acre deal for a major sports complex, but it happened that one time, and that was it. So I went and go through, and in Washington State, once you get your license, you have to go into a brokerage. And so I found a nice, easy brokerage to go into and started learning a little bit about buyer's agency and listing and all that sort of stuff. And I was still working W-2 and things at the time. And I guess I'll put this caveat in. I never, while I had my real estate license, was not a W-2 employee or a 1099 employee for somebody else. So it was something I did on the side, but I was able to consistently, with that real estate license, make anywhere from $20,000 and $40,000 a year in additional income by doing that. So I'm going out and I'm doing these things, right? Like, I didn't have my first commission for 6 months. Like, it was just brutal and struggling. The brokerage is giving me leads off of Zillow. I'm going out and meeting with people, showing up to properties at 7 a.m. on Sunday. And I was like, this sucks. There was no other way to say, like, I was just not cut out for that type of real estate of, being a commodity and, just hoping people answer the drip campaign and everything else. Like, it just was not for me. So I start looking into, what else can I do with my real estate license? And that's when I discovered BiggerPockets. So I mainline BiggerPockets, and I then go to my Rotary Club, which I was a part of, and I start talking to a couple of guys and just like, hey, do you own property? Like, are you someone who does this sort of stuff? And they're like, yeah, I totally do. And so I talked to enough people that I was like, well, I would like to help with that. I have this real estate license. I have access to these things. If I were to start underwriting or looking at properties and sending those out, would that be of value? And they said, yeah. So that was how I built my first buyers list, was that I went through people I knew and people that were in clubs I was a part of and said, hey, I'm doing this thing. And for probably about 2 or 3 months, I just cut my teeth by going to the MLS every single morning. And I would look at what are the new properties and I would underwrite them. And at the time, BiggerPockets had a free calculator that you could go on, and they didn't care how many you used. So I would go in, I would just start plugging away on the properties and just putting them in and doing this, and I'd send it out. And then guys would start to reply to me and they'd say, hey, I noticed that in your calculation, you were only using 5% for maintenance costs. For me on a home of this age, I'd really like you to look at 10% of what that would look like. And I was going, oh, okay, wait a minute. So now I understand that different investors have different criteria for what they're looking at. There's not a universal standard. Each of them has different tolerances. So then I started to go like, oh, okay, let me start, drilling down on this list. And I started going like, oh, okay, if I'm going to send this over to Charlie, I need to make sure that it's got these numbers on here because these are Charlie's numbers in order to make it work and what that looks like. And that started to get me traction and started getting me some deals closed as a real estate agent looking at stuff. And then I was going like, well, what else could I be doing? Like, how else can I use license? What can I go on? And then I was like, oh, well, meetups. Like my challenge it continues to be that I still am not getting enough look at off market properties. And I'm still not, getting a wide enough network of people that I know. So I was like, great, I'll start a meetup and I'll start doing that. And I ran a meetup for 3.5 years, just before, up until COVID. We tried doing the online meetup thing and it just wasn't as interactive. We didn't still have the same thing. But for 3 years, every single month, I got between 30 and 50 people into a room together. We talked about a deal and I said, hey, we're going to dissect this. We're going to look at this. And we would break down what made the deal good or bad, why people would or wouldn't do it. And then I would encourage people like, hey, if you're interested in this is live. Like you can come, ask me, I'll help you with it. And then I had a lot of newbies come in as well. I had a lot of wholesalers that were just getting started. They'd listened to BiggerPockets. They'd read something somewhere. They'd talked to a guru and they were trying to come in. So then I would use my access to the National Association of Realtors stuff to start pull like, here are expired listings for them. Here are some for sale by owners. Here, let me do the comps for you so that when you're doing things out in the hopes that they would recommend me to get the list back or other sorts of stuff that I was doing. And so that was, again, that it took a while to get going, but it was establishing me as authority within the area of what to do. And I started getting people saying, oh, I know so-and-so, can they get added to your buyers list that you're sending properties to? I heard from so-and-so that you ran this. I am looking for properties in that market. Can we have a conversation? And just started developing those relationships and doing that. And so then COVID hit, real estate kind of died down for a little bit in our market just because people were buying homes. And so all of a sudden the prices just were going through the roof and finding a deal was next to impossible of what we could do. Moved out here to Tulsa, Oklahoma and discovered that it's a very different prospect out here. The thing that blew my mind really was the fact not only that things were a little bit cheaper, but that like complex strategies were very easy to explain to homeowners. Like I wrote a letter to a homeowner, was just like, hey, I noticed that you guys are trying to leave. Sounds like you guys have work. Your property's been on market for this number of days. Are you open to, me taking over payments, doing something creative that I can help you with? And my response rate on those was like 80-90% of people going like, yeah, we totally would be into that. Like that's something let's discuss it. Let's talk about it. I was like, oh, geez, this is great. So it's gotten much more over the last year, more competitive in this market because people have figured out like they do all the time, what are small markets and how to go about them. But what I've also done is I've started keeping in touch with some of the people I know and getting referred to people. And I'm doing a lot of underwriting in JVs right now. So people are saying, hey, your boots on the ground in that market. Could you go take a look at this property, figure out what it is and let us know if the numbers make sense because we're out of state and we're trying to do this. So I've got a couple of guys right now that they have a bunch of 1031s they're looking to place. And so they're saying, hey, here's our criteria. Let us know what this looks like. And we're trying to figure out what that could look like as an opportunity for them, but also as an opportunity for me to help them. And then before the call, we were talking about like I found a 101 unit single family portfolio that I'm doing the due diligence on right now to try and figure out like, okay, is this even really a deal? Because every realtor that lists one of these things thinks it's gold, and I've got to sort through it and go, it's fool's gold is what it is because of X, Y, and Z.
Wow.
So that's been my journey up through here.
Wow. That's a lot to take in. So first off, shout out to BiggerPockets, the biggest investing platform online in and about, because there's so many different resources that come from there. I use it all the time also. Yeah. And then I see how you leverage your real estate license. So you got your real estate license and you leverage these, like how more can I use it than helping a person buy or sell a house? You use it actually into networking. I do the same thing too. You have more avenues when you have your real estate license to get into different, to get in different areas. And that's to me, that's a huge plus. I mean, because there's certain stuff that people can get for free, but then when you're a realtor, it changes the game a little bit more.
Well, and I would go tell other realtors that were trying to become investor friendly. I was like, do you know that you have access to this thing called narrpr.com or .org, or I can't remember what it ends in, but it's like, that is a national MLS listing. It has everything, including tax records and property records and all this other sort of stuff. And so I would show that in demos to other realtors or to investors I was working with. I was like, well, let's run the numbers here. And they're like, this is amazing. How do you do this? I'm like, well, it's free because I paid my dues. So I'm just going to leverage this tech in order to find out more info and get more and get a leg up on the other people that are spending their time in coffee shops trying to say, would you please let me add you to my email list?
Yes.
So for me, it was all about adding value. The other thing that you and your audience might be interested about that I did that was something to help was I did the thing we're all told we're not to do when we're in sales roles, which is like I over-explained everything to everybody when I started to work with them. And like I said, the reason I did that was because I was always a W-2 or 1099 employee while I had my license. And everybody tells you real estate's a volume game. Well, if it's a volume game, but I only have 10 to 15 hours a week that I can do work, I don't want to go open doors for people that aren't serious buyers. Or that if I open the door for them and they're like, well, we didn't want to buy that. Again, you and I have had this experience. Michael, I'm not interested in that house because the third bedroom was paint.
Yes.
I was like, I will buy the paint. Like if that is the reason we're not buying this, I will buy the paint to cover that up. Like that should not be the defining factor. But that's what I was running into. So what I did is I started creating this pattern that I came up with in the script that would, depending on how it went, would be like the first time I met somebody, the first 20 to 40 minutes of me meeting with them was me talking at them. And it shouldn't have worked, but it did. And what I would do is I would say, hey, I just want to baseline level check with you. Do you understand how I get paid? Like as a realtor helping you, do you understand how this is going to work? Whether it's an investment transaction, a residential transaction, commercial, do you understand how I make my money? And so they would say like, oh yeah, the seller contributes that. And I was like, that's how I get the cash, but that's not how I become your agent. So what I do is I have to earn what I do. EARN. I have to educate you. I have to be an advocate for you. I have to refer you when I don't know the answer or it's not my specialty. And the very last thing I have to do is negotiate on your behalf. And each of those, like I had breakdowns and examples of everything. Like, educating is like, hey man, you're going to do 4 transactions in your lifetime. I'm going to do 4 a month. So I need to make sure that you understand all the parts and pieces that move, how they go through, because the last time you bought is very different than the market that we're in today. And I want to let you know what's normal, what's happening. Advocating is, again, this is a weird thing that's happening. This is a normal thing that's happening. If you're comfortable with weird, here's the consequences of that. If you're comfortable with normal, here's the consequences of that. And just give them like, hey, pro and con this for you. This is what is going on. Refer, I was always like, here are 3 people. I want you to go interview all 3 of them. They're all great roofers. You need the roof inspected. You need somebody to give you opinion. I should not be doing that. But here's the deal. Here's the question I want you to ask each of them. And it would be topical, right? Like, ask them about, how they go and do this thing or this sort of stuff. Go ask them that question. If you don't like any of those 3, I'll give you another 3 to call. Like I'll happily do that, but I don't want you to just pick somebody, because my whole thing with referring was I never, as a business, want to put you in a situation where you get to say, Michael told me to do this. What I want you to say is, Michael gave me the options and he explained what was good and bad, and then I picked the outcome. And again, my reasoning I would tell him is like, I don't have to live with those consequences.
Yes.
Like I get to get paid, I get to move on, but you have to live with this investment property. You have to take on the consequences of what's going to happen when you get into rehab and start pulling stuff out of walls and other stuff. Like that is solely you. And I don't want you to have a bad taste in your mouth because I showed you the property and you went through the deal. Like that is the worst thing that can happen. So let's bring in a pro that can give you great advice and do that. And then again, the last thing to negotiate was, all right, let's go in. We can offer, 20 grand under, but at the rate, the way the properties and the market is right now, we're going to piss them off and we're not going to have a response. So here are some other tactics we can go in with to try and see if we can knock them down, because we know that it is overpriced, but it would be to have those negotiating conversations with them in order to, again, show the value. And like I said, that was the first 20 to 40 minutes of meeting anybody, regardless of what they were using me for, whether it was commercial, whether it was residential, whether it was small investment, wholesaling, whatever. I would tell them that. 80% of the time, people would say, yes, I want you to be our realtor. I want you to be the guy helping me with doing this, even if they were already working with another agent.
Wow.
And how I would get over the other agent issue is they would say, well, we're working with so-and-so. And I say, great, they're a wonderful agent. Let me ask you 2 questions. First, did you sign a buyer's agency, or did you sign an agreement with them, a listing agreement, whatever it is? Did you sign something with them already? The answer is yes. I was like, great. I want you to see that through, because I would feel terrible if anybody was stealing my clients, but I want you to see that through. The only thing I want to tell you is that, like, if you feel there's a night and day difference between the service level that you're getting, I would encourage you as a customer to go demand the things that I'm promising you from your current person. And if they're unwilling to do that, then, you know, you can see about getting out of that and coming and work with me. But I believe that everybody should have, like, especially if you've signed a contract with somebody, go see that through to the end. Like, follow through with that. That is what I'd encourage you to do. And then if they said no, you know, like we've walked through a couple of houses with, you know, with Tony, and we've taken a look at this. I'd say, okay, great. So here in Washington State, if you haven't signed an agency agreement, then you are still the customer. You're still shopping. If you work with me, you have to sign one, because I am going to invest in you. I'm going to put the time and energy in. So I need you to commit to me, because I'm going to commit to looking for you and helping you and doing the things that you want to do. Is that a commitment you're willing to make? And none of them had a problem signing the agreement. They were all just like, yep, totally bought in, because they've heard me talk for the last 20 minutes about everything I'm going to do to help them. And they're just like, this is great. And they would tell the things that we hear from other agents, right? Like, oh, this agent was, they've got me on a drip. I occasionally see emails. They call me on Sundays asking if I want to go look at a property. Or the investors would get the one of like, man, my agent called me up and was like, hey, there's a duplex. It's for sale for $500,000, but it brings in $200,000 or brings in $2,000 a month. That sounds like a good deal. We should go look at that. And you're just going, no, we should not. You should not waste my time with that. That is absolutely not something I want to go take a look at, because the money doesn't make sense. So that was again, trying to make sure that I was efficient in the use of that time. And for those 20% that didn't want to work with me, I was happy to see them go, because either they did not, like, they were set in how the market was and what they knew and their knowledge. And I was never going to convince them. So no matter how I advocated for them, negotiated on their behalf, they were the ones that were going to make the decisions. And that's just not the way that I wanted to do business. And then the other ones were like, boy, this seems like this guy's a talker. He's got a lot of effort. I'm like, yep, if you don't like me, we're probably not going to be good for doing business with each other, because the way I'm educating you now is the way I'm going to educate you through the entire process. So if you're already tired of me talking after 20 minutes, you don't want to be with me for the next, 2 months, 2 years while we go through this process.
No. And I love what you said about right there, because that's the way I am with clients too. You tell them everything up front. You're honest with them. You respect them. And you tell them, like, well, we can go from this position or we can go from this. You show them exactly what the options are. I always say that if you show a person options and everything about what they can and can't do, and then their perspective changes, 9 times out of 10, they're going to stay with you. Just like that 20% that left, you didn't need them. The 80%, of course, right, because you brought so much value to them. Like, hold on, we feel confident in you. We feel confident in Mike helping us find us a place or selling a place. And that right there, with their mindset and everything, that makes them feel more comfortable. And it's like a genuine feel. It's definitely a genuine feeling, especially when you express it to them.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Attention realtors. First impressions are so important for real estate sales. Having a clean logo with easy-to-read information can impress a buyer and potentially get you that sale. Here at Boundary Waters, we excel at first impressions. If you need a logo or lawn signs, give us a call. Our experience at signs and banners have been proven for over a decade. Give us a call at 530-221-2151. Again, that's 530-221-2151. Boundary Waters Screen Printing, home of the Surf Ninja. www.boundarywatersinc.com.
Yeah. Well, and so that was a pattern that I developed. Like I told you, my first 6 months as an agent, terrible, horrible. Like, didn't close a single commission, didn't do anything. And then I discovered this like pattern, this explanation to people. That first year, I was rookie of the year at the brokerage. Like, I think I did 2.5 or 2.8 million in that last 6 months,
Great.
Of going through stuff. And it was, and we were in a tertiary market. So some people listening out may be like, well, 2 million is not hard to do in my market. It was like, well, at the time when the average home sale price was between 150 and 180, like that was a lot of hustling.
Yes, it is.
Like that was a lot of good. But that was for me, like, again, how do I make something systematized? Like, how do I develop a new habit for me so that I can get in front of more ideal people that I want to talk to, rather than a bunch of looky-loos or other sorts of people that are just going to waste my time and kick tires.
Yes. Now wow, you've come a long ways. How long have you been in this? And like,
So that was I want to say that was 2015 because I got my initial license and then I went and got my managing broker's license because there was some investors contacted me. They were thinking about buying a brokerage for the property management side. And they said, hey, we want somebody that can do this. And I said, all right, I'll go get my managing broker's license. So pass that test. And for those of you in Washington State, that is the scariest test I've ever taken.
Is it?
It is terrible because most tests, they are like, hey, if you get it right, you get it wrong. It's, no big deal. But theirs is a multiple choice of like, here, what are the things you should do? And you can get every answer right, but then you also lose points if you put on wrong things. So you can walk out of there having given every single answer, but if you gave too many wrong answers in addition to it, you can still fail the test. And I have not since college woken up with sweats about like, trying to figure out what is that? And they're very like, ethical and also like process driven questions about stuff. And so, yeah, it was a nightmare of a test. And when I moved to Oklahoma, they do not have reciprocity with Washington State. So I had to close out my license. And so for the last 2 years, I've just been a knowledgeable investor working with other people.
Wow. That is crazy. I didn't know it was that deep for that test right there.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. So is there any obstacles, like huge obstacles that you had to endure while you're here in your journey with real estate investing?
I mean, the challenge for me was that I was in a small market. I was in a tertiary market with a surrounding area of between 150 and 200,000 people when you really opened up the map on what properties were out there. So at that time, it was a tertiary market that was a farming community. So traditional historical appreciation was 1% to 2%. Like I used to tell people that, hey, you tell me when you bought the home, I can tell you what it's going to appraise at because there was the appraisal and appreciation was just that consistent inside of that market. So 2015 comes along, things are starting to change a little bit. 2016, things start getting a little wider. 2017, 2018, things are just like, I walked out of one property that was an estate sale and I made an offer to the family and I had done all my math and everything. And they said, no, thank you. That's not an offer that we're interested in. I was like, oh, that's a bummer. I thought I made a really good, compelling offer. And it went on market later for $150,000 more than my offer had been. And I started calling all of my realtor friends. I was like, I want you to go to this open house. I want you to look at it because the home looked like the Brady Bunch had lived there yesterday. Like there were no improvements to it. Granted, great square footage, but it was a 1970s home that mom and dad had never made any improvements to. Great square footage, did have a pool, had a great view, all that sort of stuff. But like there was so much that my wife and I were like, oh, we're going to have to make lots of improvements to it. Every one of my real estate friends went and looked at it and they're like, yeah, it's way overpriced. Like this is not going to go for that. This is not normal. I don't know what they were thinking. It sold for $20,000 over asking.
Wow.
And that's when I knew my radar was off. That's when I was like, the market is doing something weird versus the math that is going on. And that is when I started to have struggles with understanding some of the comps and things that were going on because I'm like, now I'm making a wild ass guess. Like now I have no historical precedence for what is happening and what's going on. You were seeing a lot of people that were claiming it was out of state investors that were coming in. But in reality, at that point, it was pre-COVID. You were seeing people retire out of very good markets like California, selling their homes that were getting these massive appreciations. And they can afford to go and pay all cash. And they're looking at it going like, do you know what 1,500 square foot was costing me in my market? That was $500,000 and I can get it here for 300. I'll happily pay $40,000 over asking because I want this house. It's perfect for me. It's ideal. And that was more what I was seeing inside of the market. That was really the challenge, especially for people that I was representing that were looking to purchase homes. I would just have to tell them like, this market is crazy. And I only want to tell you that if you want to move forward, you have to be willing to be a little crazy in order to do this and what's going on. It helped when like rates started to come down. That made things a little bit more achievable for them. But on the investor side, that was also the point where we were just, I was just telling people like, at my meetups, I remember going like, okay, average home is selling for 110 of asking price. And it's sitting on market for 40 days. That's time it's listed to time it's closed. So I don't know what to tell any of you guys if you're looking on market for stuff. Like just hold on to your cash. Don't try anything. If you're looking for on market, like invest in off market stuff and go find the fix and flip or go make friends with a wholesaler who wants to do it for you. But that was the biggest thing for me, was that, again, not having control of the market and the things that were going on, and then having people just skew data and skew results by coming in and having unreasonable like abilities to make offers on stuff that people I was working with just they weren't going to be able to do that. It was great for my sellers, right? Like when we were listing properties, it was just like, well, this is fantastic. I'm going to put a wild ass guess out here, and I'm going to do my math. And now I'm going to say, hey, based on appreciation, I'm seeing that things in this market are going for 15% above. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go 15% over, and we would still get an additional $2,000 or $3,000 above what I had put, because the demand was just that high.
I'm glad you said about that, especially here in California. Like there's that appreciation. Gosh. I mean, so many people left out of California because the appreciation out what they got from homes. It was crazy. People were buying. Right. People were selling so many homes. They were buying and selling so many. It was just crazy here, because I know a lot of them did go to the Midwest, Oklahoma, Texas. I know friends that went to South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and living like kings, because what the price is here and what you can get there in the Midwest and the South, you're living in a palace.
Oh, yeah. No, I've got family. They've lived for probably 30, 35 years in a house in a major market on the West Coast. And they're looking at it going like, oh, we're going to sell this thing, and we're going to be able to buy for cash, our downsized dream home, and still have money left over because of the appreciation that this market has had. And they're like, it's a nice house. And again, looking at the markets that I'm in now, I'm like, yeah, it's okay. It's fine. But in that market, the square footage, the location, the everything else, like I bet it's one of those that, the stories out of California, they probably bought it for, 150, 180, and they're going to sell it for 1.8, 2 million,
Yes. And then with everything that you've accomplished and what you have going on right now, my main question I love to ask is your mindset. What got you to the right mindset to where you're at right now?
Oh, the 100% the mindset that got me to where I need is the abundance mindset, right? Like there are not enough people to tackle deals. There are not enough funds to bring down every deal. And there is always an opportunity in everyone that I talk to. I met a wholesaler who really helped me with that. He was telling me about this terrible deal. Like he's got it there. The mom wants to get out of it. She's got a granddaughter, but the son is living in it because he's got, drug and gang friends that are hanging out there and stuff. And she just wants out of it. She doesn't want to be there. And I was just going, well, so what did you do? He's like, Michael, I was able to get that house. Like I would not have picked it up or anything else, except what she wanted, what her desire was she wanted to go travel the country with her granddaughter. So I bought them an RV. Wow. And I was able to get that house for the cost of a used RV with gas in it that she could drive out that day. She signed the paperwork. I gave her the keys. And I got that property. And then all I had to do was put up the eviction notice, get the police out, do all this sort of stuff. And I was just going, that is some next level creative thinking.
I salute you, Mike, to that.
How to do that. Well, again, that wasn't me. That was one of the wholesalers I was working with. And I was just like, that is incredible. But him bringing that to my attention was like, oh, that's right. There has to be a positive outcome for every opportunity in front of you. Like there is a win-win for everybody. Sometimes the other person doesn't want to give you the win. No. Like they're not actually open to help, or they're just so out of touch with what things are going on. But if you educated them enough, if you gave them every opportunity, if you gave them the pros and cons, and the worst thing they can say about you is like, yeah, Tony gave me all these options and he gave me a price and it just wasn't the right price. But he then said I can give him a call anytime if I change my mind. Like, word gets around about, you doing business that way versus burning bridges and blowing people up and, yelling at people for not, for being dumb and not knowing the thing. Like that was the change for me of just like, oh, okay, anytime I'm talking to somebody, there has to be an ability to create a win for both sides and what we're looking for. I helped a guy with an underwriting on a property recently. It was storage and multifamily and single family all on, I think it was like 2 or 3 acres or something like that. And through my rapport building with the realtor, I discovered that the owner was in his 80s. His wife was significantly younger than him, and he was open to creative finance, but he didn't want to do these long creative finances that everybody else wanted. Like, he wanted short-term creative finance is what he was looking for, because he knew he wasn't going to be around for much longer, and he wanted to live long enough to see that the funds went to his wife and that she was taken care of and he didn't have to worry about her. So I presented that to the team that was making the deal and putting it together. I was like, guys, here's how you're going to win. You've just got to make sure that whatever terms you want, he will for sure accept them. The agent even gave me the price on what he was like, I'm pretty sure we can get accepted at this, which I think was like 3 or something like that, 3 million. I was like, I'm pretty sure we can get it for this price. I'm pretty sure they will accept any terms you give as long as you make the balloon within 24 months. They will. I'm pretty sure they will go for anything you guys want to do. And here's what that looks like. So the property had been on market for months. The guy had been getting a bunch of offers, but again, people wanted 5, 10-year balloons, all that sort of stuff. And the guy just wasn't having any of it. So they went in, they made an offer that was, I think they did 2.5 years is what they got him up to, but they still were within that timeline of what they wanted to do. They gave him just a little bit of money, but then financed everything else. And they've just got to go in and up the rent rolls. They've got to, remove a couple of tenants outside of the storage side, but he's also got like one of the only storage facilities. So they're just going to do that marketing thing of like, okay, great. Over the next, 6 months, we're just going to keep raising them until we get to, right now they're at 130% capacity, meaning that they had a wait list of people looking to come in. Yeah. And so they were like, we've already got plenty of built up capacity. It's like, all right, so we're going to start escalating the pricing until we get to 90% capacity, because then we can accept anybody that comes in, but then we're also at good market rates for where we need to be. And they have an NOI, so that once they do that, the bank will look at the the income ratio on what they're doing on the storage units and the properties and go, yeah, of course, like you guys tied this up for 3, you need a balloon of 2.8. Okay, that's a no-brainer, because based on your revenue income, even if we give you that loan, your debt to income and what you're doing is going to be like I think they got it up to, when we did the calculation, like a 2.2 or 2.5. Like, there's no lender out there that's not going to take that to debt to coverage ratio. Like, they're absolutely going to do that. So yeah, that was, again, property that was sitting on market, wasn't moving. Nobody was, the realtor was getting frustrated because he wanted to do this deal for this guy. And then just saying, great, so what is the win? How do we make this a win for your client? Let me go back to my team and see if we can make this a win for them as well. What does that look like? And it is just that attitude of abundance. There's always a positive outcome for everybody that I work with. If there isn't one, it's not because I didn't try. It's because they didn't want to do business with me.
Amen.
And that's also okay.
Amen. Amen. Yes, I love that. I mean, to me, mindset's everything. It changes everything about you, the way you are, the way you feel, your daily activities when it comes to work, comes to people, communication. It's just it's an abundance of things. And then people can feel that energy, that positive energy you have. And especially with you, I can already tell from the energy that you have and positiveness, like that 20%, you didn't need them, like I said before, because that 80%, yeah, you're not going to, I tell people you're not going to win everything. But, I always say, like, even if you change one person's life, man, that's huge. That's huge. And I see, I see that you're helping a lot of lives, especially around your community.
Yeah. Well, and, at the height of what I was doing in my community back home, like, yeah, I was an avid Rotarian. I was involved in the theater community. I was involved in a lot of other organizations like United Way and other sort of stuff. I was just constantly, giving back to the community and doing that. But that was also one of those things of like, hey, I'm a person that does do these things, and I do give back, and I want other people to be educated. Part of why we're talking today is, I want people to know things, because the more people know when they come and do business with me, the less work I have to do in order to keep them educated. And then I just get to help more people that want the help. Like, that was the other mind shift stuff, was like, the people that need me may not know that they need me, but man, if I can explain to them what I do well enough, then they will appreciate that, and they'll be more likely to do business with me. Or again, worst case scenario, they're like, man, this guy talked to us for 40 minutes about all the stuff he's going to do for us. And he was going to offer to do these things. And I can't believe that somebody would do that. And, what a jerk to assume that I would need his help negotiating and stuff. And it's like, all right, that's the way you're going to be. Then that's totally fine. As you said, I don't need to spend that time with that person to help them. They'll figure out another solution.
Exactly. What's the best way for people to reach you? Because I know people are going to be listening to this. They're like, I need to get a hold of Mike because he's just an inspiration himself.
Oh, absolutely. Best way to get a hold of me is direct to my email, michael@dissectingthedeal.com. That is the email I check daily. And I still have people from, over a decade ago reaching out to ask for help and get information and stuff. So always happy to help people through that.
Okay. I'll definitely put that in the notes and everything. And is there do you do an investor type meetup also? Do you have anything going with that people would make?
Not right now. It's not something that I'm doing at the moment. I'm attending other people's meetups and doing those. You run one for 3 years, and I'll tell you this: meetups are not the way to get rich. Nobody is getting into the meetup game in order to make a side income. Just like they're not getting into podcasting to blow up that way. So I am happy now to just go and be a participant and go in and meet new people and go do those sorts of things. That's been my philosophy for the last couple of years, but I do occasionally have that itch of wanting to control the room a little bit and be like, we are wasting some time here. Can we get on to the next?
Exactly. Right. Well, it was an honor and a pleasure for you, Mike, to be on the podcast. I can't wait to put this out and everything. And, yes, I love everything that you've done, helping with people, and, man, you're just an inspiration. You've been an inspiration to me because I love just being around people who have goals in their life and they want to make the world a better place.
Fantastic. Well, again, thanks for having me on. And yeah, I'm always happy to talk with anybody, especially when it comes to real estate.
Great. Thank you so much. And on that note, we are out here. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this podcast of the Professional Real Estate Investing Podcast. Y'all have a great day.
In the fast-paced world of real estate, success hinges on information. Introducing PropStream, your all-in-one real estate solution. Find properties, analyze markets, and generate leads effortlessly. With PropStream, you're always one step ahead. Access it anytime, anywhere, and watch your business thrive. Don't miss out on the future of real estate. Get started with PropStream today. Visit trial.propstreampro.com/Tony Jacobs for a 7-day free trial and revolutionize your real estate game. PropStream, your key to real estate success. Don't wait. Start now.